take a look at graphing exponential functions. Now, you know that you have an exponential function if the x is in the exponent place. In other words, my variable is floating, right? You know that you have an exponential function when the variable is floating. Okay, so this is an exponential function, and this is a growing function because this number is greater than 1. So this next one that we look at will be a decreasing exponential function because this number is less than 1, between 1 and 0. So let's take a look at this one. We're going to sketch the graph and then state its domain and range. The way I'm going to sketch this graph is I'm going to make a table of values, and I'm going to pick some really easy numbers to work with. For instance, I know that if I put in a -1, then that's going to cause this to be this number, right? Because this exponent right here is negative, and that causes me to need to move the 3 to the bottom of the fraction. So there's an easy one to work with. If I put in a 0, well, anything to the 0 power is 1. I put in a 1, well, then it's just going to be 3. Now, just for kicks, I could go ahead and put in a 2, and of course I'm going to get 9. Now let's just plot those points. It's that simple. -1 1/3, there's that dot, over 0 up 1, over 1 up 3, and over 2 up 9. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Now, it's very important that I actually picked a negative number, right? Because we do see that this graph, the domain does continue this way. If you picked more negatives, smaller and smaller negative x's, then we would continue to get closer and closer to the height of 0. It's going to get closer and closer. It's never going to reach a height of 0, but it's going to get closer and closer. So basically, you realize that's going to be an asymptote of y equals 0. So let's take a look at this next one. Oh, excuse me, domain and range. So let's look at the domain and range for this one. The domain, we can clearly see that it's -infinity to infinity. All real numbers, right? The range, however, is not. Now, careful, the range is never going to, it's not starting at 0. We're not going to ever reach 0. So we're going to start at just up above 0, and then we're going to go to infinity. Okay, let's take a look at the next one. Again, we're going to make a table of values, and we're going to remember that negative exponents mean that the base, whatever's raised to that negative exponent power, that means that these things are on the wrong side of the fraction line. So I'm going to bring the 2 up, and I'm going to bring the 1 down, and that's now raised to the first power, which is 2. I'm going to put in a 0, and it's going to become 1. I put in a 1, and it's a half. I put in a 2, and it's just a fourth. All right? So when I square a half, I'm just going to square the top, square the bottom, and that becomes a fourth. So -1, I get a 2. Now this one's totally different, right? I told you this one is a decreasing function. Over 0 up 1, notice how that has that same point in common with the other one. Over 1 up a half, and over 2 up a fourth. There's my shape of this function. Now this is going to continue to get closer and closer to a height of 0 as I increase my x. And let's just for kicks go ahead and put in a -2. 1/2 to the -2 power is going to be a 2 over 1, but then squared, which is going to be a 4. So I put in -2, I'm going to go up 4. So there's how that curve is going to continue. And there it is right there. Let's take a look at domain and range. We see that it's going to be all real numbers. The domain, and then the range is going to be again from 0 to infinity. Okay, couple of, I think just one more. So let's take a look at this now. If you get a graphing calculator, if you have one handy, and you look for the e, that's actually an irrational number. So hold on a minute, and I'm going to grab my calculator for you. Okay, so I find the e, and any scientific calculator will have this. So I'm going to find that e, and for this particular one, it's second divide by, and I'm going to hit enter. And you see that it's a decimal, right? and it goes on forever. And so I'm going to just act like that's just really 2.7. I'm going to have to round it, right, when I'm actually trying to plot points. But I'm just wanting you to know that it really is a number. Okay, it's really a number. So let's take a look back at this one. So let's just say I'm going to go ahead and go with -1, 0, 1, and then maybe 2. So at -1, that's e to the -1, and that is going to be approximately 2.71 to the -1, which is really going to just bring it into a fraction of close to roughly a third. Put in 0, I get 1. Put in a 1, I get 2.71 roughly. And then put in a 2, I get roughly 7.4 roughly. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and plot these points. -1, I get about a third. Over 0, up 1. You should be noticing a pattern there, right? Over 1, up 2.7-ish. Oops, come on now. And then over 2, up 7.4-ish. Over 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. All right, so there's that number. Now we're going to see later on that e is connected to natural logarithms. Oops, there we go. That's going to continue to reach a height of 0, but it's going to continue to approach a height of 0. So let's talk about the domain. The domain is -infinity to infinity, and the range again is 0 to infinity. All right, hope this was helpful. Thanks for watching.